especially because I am someone who actually worked in labor and delivery as a nurse. Definitely affected my experience in a good way, but not as good as I thought it would. It was my labor and delivery nurse, her critical thinking, that helped me get the vaginal delivery of my dreams. Nothing but the goodness of God. I hope that this helps someone out there. I felt like I had been bullied. It was like, what do you want to listen to, girl? Like, what? And of course we're listening to Beyonce, honey. So hi everyone, what's up, you guys? Welcome back or to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Aggie, aka Nurse Ags. And as you can see from the title of this video, we are getting into my labor and delivery story, my childbirth experience. And this is a long time coming. I actually had my daughter a couple of months ago, one of the best days of my life. And I will say it took me a full 2 months to completely process what actually went down in that 24 hours of labor and pushing and ultimately delivering my daughter. It was a lot, but I am so happy to say that although it was a roller coaster of a journey, the end result was completely worth it, and the actual delivery was an absolute dream come true. The journey to get there, nothing but God. Nothing but God. From the moment I got pregnant to the moment I delivered her to now, nothing but the goodness of God when I just think back on this whole pregnancy and childbirth experience. So I will preface this by saying that I will say I had a positive delivery, and I had it's hard to categorize what I would describe my labor as. Just know that it really kind of opened my eyes to what women go through in labor, especially when they lack education and lack what their options are in being in labor and delivery, and just how vulnerable we are as women in that environment, especially because I am someone who actually worked in labor and delivery as a nurse for what, 4 or 5 years. My labor team, they knew that, and that definitely affected my experience in a good way, but not as good as I thought it would. And I'll get into all the nitty-gritty in this story. But yeah, I had my daughter 2 months ago. I delivered at a hospital by an OB. Whenever I found out I got pregnant, I ended up going with a practice that I was seeing for my regular GYN care. I chose this group because I really enjoyed the nurse practitioner who did my GYN care, but obviously a woman's health nurse practitioner cannot deliver babies. And so I actually ideally wanted a midwife to follow me throughout my pregnancy and deliver my child. And I did my research early in my pregnancy to find where, what midwife, specifically a nurse midwife, because I knew I did want to deliver at either a birthing center or a hospital, preferably a birthing center. And so I found a group of nurse midwives and contacted them. However, I never reached them. In fact, I called and it led me to their voicemail during normal business hours. And I took that as a sign that if I'm having a hard time getting in contact with them during normal business hours, then maybe I might not have the best experience just communicating with them throughout my pregnancy journey. And so I ended up just sticking with the group I was getting my GYN care with. It's an all-woman OB group, and basically with each prenatal visit I see different OB/GYN, and that's because whenever it comes time for me to actually labor and deliver my child, anyone from the group, any OB obstetrician from the group can be on call and therefore can deliver me. So it's their way of me developing rapport, or patients developing rapport with all their providers. It's not like a stranger is, helping you have your child when the time comes. So I liked that I got to meet and, experience all the OBs. I will say I did like some OBs more than others, meaning just this is just the name of the game. Some providers had better bedside manners than others. That being said, that's how I landed with my OB/GYN. And to kind of compensate, since I wasn't going to be having a nurse midwife deliver my baby, I said I really wanted to have a doula. And for me, having a doula would be my way of making sure there was someone who, you know, provided those comfort measures for me while I was laboring, that helped me prepare for labor, you know, in the prenatal period, you know, that would coach me through contractions, that would be able to direct my partner in supporting me in labor, as well as preparing me postpartum as well. I like to say I got a doula, an amazing doula at that. Got super blessed to the point where me and her are actually friends, and I'm not just saying that, she feels the same way. We know I had an OB, we know my background as a labor and delivery nurse. I now work as a nurse practitioner, and I had a doula, okay, that was phenomenal in preparing me for like mentally and physically for what could happen in labor and delivery. Now that's all. I felt that that was a long like prelude. What happened? How did it start? Let's start from the beginning. So it was a beautiful Sunday. I want to say first, okay, let me just give God the glory, because 24 hours prior to even going into labor was the most beautiful, picturesque, storybook day. I couldn't have written a better prior 24 hours. We had just dropped off our little puppy to what we call boarding school, because we wanted to make sure that he was in good hands while we, you know, before we end up going to the hospital. And after we came back from the hospital, we did not want to be overwhelmed with managing a puppy and a newborn. So we dropped our puppy dog off at boarding school / training school for 3 weeks. It was on a Saturday, right? Dropped him off. We ended up going to a local coffee shop. I got a nice little coffee, I think, and a cinnamon roll, because the last couple weeks of my pregnancy, I was obsessed with cinnamon buns and cinnamon rolls. From there, we ended up going to get a massage, beautiful, and just spent the afternoon there. We went to like enjoy some of their amenities, their little, you know, their pool. From there, we ended up going to dinner at our favorite local ramen spot. And then from there, we even got some dessert. We went to a bakery we had never been to before. And it was, I mean, it was like the last hoorah, you know, before we didn't even realize the next day what was going to happen. But it was just really nice to enjoy quality time together. And just enjoy it being us for the last time, really, for a long time at least. So that was the day prior. Sunday, we wake up normally, actually always, we always go to church on Sundays, and we've been going to church my entire pregnancy. This Sunday, for whatever reason, we just listened to our bodies and we slept in. And I woke up like at 9 o'clock, was on my phone, went back to sleep, woke up that second time to what was my water had broke. I guess it was very anticlimactic. I like went to the bathroom, like rolled out of bed, went to the bathroom, looked at my undergarment and saw like a little blood tinged fluid, and I was like, huh? If I did not have the prior labor and delivery experience that I had, I probably would have been a little bit more concerned because of the blood. But in seeing it, I could tell it wasn't enough blood for it to be worrisome, and it looked more like the blood you get when your cervix is dilating, plus a little fluid. So I saw that, I was like, okay. Now at this point, not really feeling any contractions. I was 39 weeks and 4 days at this point. And I had been having practice contractions from 37 weeks onward, like off and on, like cramping in the middle of the night. That was, you know, pretty uncomfortable, but it would go away after drinking water. You know, I ended up actually going and waking up my husband. He was still napping at this point, and I'm like, I think my water might have broke. I like let my doula know, and you know, she reassured me. I went ahead and just make sure everything was together, did a little bit of cleaning, ate like a little snack, took a shower, and then as I'm doing these things, I'm starting to notice like some cramping happening, but nothing that was very uncomfortable. And I also was monitoring like how much of my water was breaking, because when your water breaks, it usually just continues to leak, especially when you have contractions. And so I noticed I was getting, you know, a little bit more fluid over time. I did contact my OBGYN during this time and let them know I think my water might have broke. And of course they said, if you think your water broke, come in. Otherwise, just monitor it over the next hour and see what happens. Decided to just stay at home. I wanted the contractions to pick up. My water broke like around actually broke around 12 p.m. I ended up going to the hospital closer to 6 p.m. Things were picking up. They were becoming more regular. I was timing my contractions. They were coming like every 5 to 6 minutes, but the pain level was not bad. We actually stopped to get some donuts for the nurses on the way. So that kind of shows you just how like calm things were. So get to the hospital, and they check me and I am 6 centimeters dilated. And I automatically start crying because one, I'm just grateful that I am this dilated under these circumstances, and that it just hits me that we are having this baby. After such a journey to get pregnant, I had 2 miscarriages prior, and this whole getting pregnant, keeping this pregnancy was just such a blessing. At this point, once I'm in triage, once she's checked me, they also confirmed my water broke. My contractions they had picked up, they're more intense. So of course I get admitted to a labor room, and my doula is on her way at this point. My husband is an amazing support. He is, giving me words of affirmation. He's helping massage my back, like doing all the things that we discussed with my doula. By the time my doula gets there, she just creates this beautiful ambiance in this labor delivery room. She dimmed the lights. She had these little string Christmas lights that she hung up. She had the aromatherapy going, music in the background. She made what could have been a very sterile hospital environment feel more cozy, more homey, more comfortable. Contractions are definitely picking up. I'm feeling a lot of it in my back. I already knew I was gonna get an epidural. That was part of the plan, honey, okay? Like, now unless I went from 0 to 10 centimeters like this, I always knew I wanted to get an epidural. I felt super good about when I made that decision, because when this anesthesiologist came into the room, I was like, thank God, I need this epidural. Like, I was in a good enough amount of pain to know, like, my cervix got to be doing something right now. It needs to be opening up because this pain is intense. And before I wasn't feeling any pain, I was 6 centimeters, right? So that just makes sense. So I get the epidural. That was smooth as could be. No complications. It was super easy. And they checked me again and I was 8 centimeters. Great, so we're making some progress. What I was told actually from OB is the reason why things slow down when you have epidural is not from the epidural itself necessarily, but because of the lack of movement. That's what they say the literature shows. So my nurse did her very best to keep changing my position from side to side to keep me moving, so to speak, because once you have epidural, you can't get out of the bed. One thing that I will never forget was the horrible headache I got after the epidural from the shake, because I was shaking so bad. I imagine this is what a migraine felt like. It was a piercing headache. Next time they checked me was like around 1 a.m. or maybe even midnight. And I was still the same. I was still 8 centimeters. I hadn't changed. My contractions seemed to have slowed down. My nurse had told me that the doctor wants to come around and like check me and put internal monitors in me. And I'm like, I asked her, I said, can she wait, a little while, like at least an hour, because they had just turned me into this comfortable position where I didn't have a headache. I was finally gonna take like a little nap. I was like, can you just have her see if she can wait? So she asked the doctor said she's coming anyways. I'm like, okay. Mind you, I had not seen the doctor since I had been admitted to the hospital. It would have gone a long way for the doctor to just pop in and, kind of give me the plan and say hello at the very least, like 2 seconds. But she came in, and what happened from then on forward, the interaction we had, it really left me feeling discouraged. It really had me feeling like low, really low down. I felt like I had been bullied, if I'm being very, very honest. And so she kind of came in without even greeting and said that the baby wasn't looking good on the monitor. This was the first time I was hearing this. I wasn't really paying attention too much to the baby. I mean, I could hear the baby on the monitor. But I made it a point, I did not want to have that part of me on. I wanted to be a patient, right? Like, obviously, if I didn't hear the baby's heartbeat, I knew how to adjust the monitor on my belly. But I didn't want to like be overstudying the strip, the fetal monitoring strip. And so I wasn't. And the nurse hadn't told me there was any concerns with the baby. So the doctor comes in and says, baby is looking great. I'm not looking at the strip the whole night. Like your water has been broken because at this point my water had been broken. I told them my water broke at I think 3 o'clock, even though it really broke at 12 o'clock. I told them 3 o'clock because I knew that clock would start. So at this point, I have a prolonged rupture of membranes, meaning my water had been broken for over 12 hours. She's like, the way this is looking, it's gonna have to be a C-section. And my husband is sitting on the couch. He stands up when he hears her mention C-section. And I'm like, whoa, like, can you show me what you're talking about with this baby? Because I had no idea that there was concerns about how the baby's heartbeat was looking. And so, but the way she presented this information, it was so jarring that even as a health provider myself, I had a hard time finding the words to advocate for myself. So it made me feel very, very small. She made me feel very small the way she communicated with me. No presentation of options or anything like that, like what the other options were, how concerning this is, X, Y, and Z. Something else that was really jarring was, I remember she said to me, this is not normal. Meaning, I'm not dilating further, and it's been X amount of time that's gone by. And the reason why that's jarring to me is because to say that's not normal, I just think it's just very, very inaccurate. It just doesn't normalize how labor looks different for everyone. I asked her what she suggests. I told her I do not want to have a C-section if it's not absolutely necessary. So she puts I agreed to having the internal monitors be placed, and we could see that my contractions had spaced out significantly. So before they were coming every like 2 minutes, before I got the epidural, to now they're coming every like 7 minutes, 10 minutes. But because baby's heartbeat was not great, we couldn't start Pitocin. When I tell you guys, I have never wanted to start Pitocin so bad in my life, because I could see that if the baby's heartbeat continued to look like this and I wasn't dilating much, it would be hard to avoid a C-section, right? I had the internal monitors in, and at this point it was just like a waiting game. I was just really hoping that my baby would, the heart rate would get better, would perk up, and we were doing all the things up until this point, between the position changes, giving me extra fluid in my IV. We did all this, and by the time it got to shift change, which is 7 a.m. So this is between like 2 a.m. 7 a.m. So I was mentally like getting very discouraged, and I had never up until this point, if I'm being honest, pictured myself having a C-section. I was not mentally prepared for that. And obviously women get C-sections all the time. It's not the end of the world. But for me, it was just a lot. I guess I was not mentally prepared for that. And so as I was continuing to now look at my baby's heartbeat and the contractions and seeing like things were not really changing, I was like, wow, I really am about to probably have a C-section. So we get a new nurse at 7 a.m. I asked her to give me the spiel on how things are with C-sections, like what the process looks like. She tells me it all, and but then also she's like, I'm new here, I'm new to you. You have not got to experience what position changes I'm gonna do. Like let's see what can happen. So I'm like, okay, girl. We'll see what magic you can work. I hope that this helps someone out there. So she asked me when's the last time I had something to eat. I told her, before I came yesterday. And then my husband was like, well, you didn't really eat a meal. You had a peanut butter sandwich. And she was like, oh yeah, that's definitely not like an actual meal. So she ends up checking my blood sugar and finds that it's very low. And she ends up alternating between giving me dextrose, like sugar, basically sugar water through my IV, and also lactated Ringer. She suspects that it's my sugar levels that have been affecting the baby and why the baby has not had the best heartbeat. So she does this, and I remember taking a nap. At this point, when I wake up, she's like, the baby's, actually looking good. I can start Pitocin. So I'm like, okay. That is literally music to our ears. I knew that once we were able to start Pitocin, that I was going to be able to go to 10 centimeters easily. I'm at 8 centimeters at this point. So when I wake up from this nap and she tells me that the baby is looking better and she can start Pitocin, I'm like, God is so good. And sure enough, she gives me a little breath of, like, at least a little bit of Pitocin, and a couple hours later when she checks me, I am 10 centimeters dilated. I'm getting to a point where, or going from a point where I was completely convinced I was likely gonna have C-section to now, like, it taking a 180 and I'm able to, be 10 centimeters and be about ready to push. I was just so like, that was nothing but God. I don't know how to tell you guys, like, how it felt like God really, 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 really was showing out. And it was like with that shift change in having a different team, really just, it was like a shift in the whole trajectory of my labor and ultimately the type of delivery that I had. And I just thank God so much for putting those people in my labor and delivery room, between the night nurse, the day shift nurse, the new doctor being patient, right? My doula, my husband, like, nothing but God. So it was time to push. My doula was like, what do you want to listen to, girl? Like, what playlists are we listening to? And of course we're listening to Beyonce, honey. So we put on Renaissance, and I pushed for all of 45 minutes. And the last song of Renaissance album, Summer Renaissance, my baby was born. And I cried tears of joy, tears of gratitude, tears of relief. To hear my baby's cries, it was the sweetest sound I've ever heard. The actual pushing and delivery it couldn't have been more perfect. That sums up my very long, it's a very long version of my labor and delivery experience. I give all the glory to God. I want to end this by saying, because of my previous experience that allowed me to, gave me an edge in, advocating, there's still ways that even if you have not been in labor and delivery experience, how you can make sure you are well equipped to be in a similar situation and be able to have the tools to advocate for yourself. So one is, if possible, having someone in your corner that has experience in the field, be it a friend, a doula, is great. I know not everyone is able to have that. I understand that fully. But if you are, pregnant, trying to get pregnant, maybe start doing your research now as to maybe there is a way you can get a free doula, in your community, or do a childbirth education class. I do know they do offer a lot of free childbirth education classes to teach you what you can encounter in the labor delivery experience between medications, what is normal, what is not normal, what questions to ask. You are so vulnerable as a patient when you're in labor delivery, and sometimes it's hard to think of these things in the moment. So having a support person, doesn't have to be a doula, but it could be, a family member, your partner, your spouse, that can ask these important questions when the time comes. Always ask, what are your options? They can present information to you in a very jarring way, and having someone that can still ask, okay, how concerning is this? What are our options is extremely important, so that you can make an educated decision, because it's really ultimately up to you as a patient. And so that's what I want to leave y'all off with. I really hope that more women feel like they have the agency to advocate for themselves when they're in birth, and really just have a team where they don't necessarily even feel like they have to advocate for themselves, that do things in the best interest of the patient. And by the best interest of the patient, that does mean obviously having a safe delivery, but also trying to get them the delivery that they want, right? Not necessarily that's easy for the provider. That is my wish and my prayer. And I have so much respect, even more respect, for labor and delivery nurses, because again, it was my labor and delivery nurse and her critical thinking that helped me get the vaginal delivery of my dreams. It was the prayers of my doula and my family that helped me get the vaginal delivery of my dreams. And those two together, that is why I end up with my situation. I would love to hear more positive birth experiences. That is what I would love. Because to have a healthy delivery is a miracle in of itself. To have a healthy delivery where it's also a positive experience, I feel like I don't hear enough of that. And so I'm putting out into the world my positive delivery experience. And I want y'all to sound off in the comments your positive, hopefully labor and delivery experience as well, so more women can hear that and more women can feel encouraged going into their childbirth. All right, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.